Marcus' private was a space only I had access to, until his assistant intruded, and in that moment, I knew everything was over. Today, I went to Hayes headquarters to meet Marcus at our agreed upon time. We were scheduled to go back to the family for dinner. Marcus' office was on the top floor. Past the executive assistant's desk area was his private domain. Outside were the client lounge and his desk, and inside was his private, connected to a study. That place held significant meaning. It was his absolutely private domain. No one could freely enter it except me. But today, when I entered Marcus' office, I saw the door leading to that private area was ajar. Gently pushing the door open, the sight inside made me freeze. Chloe was inside. I knew her. She was Hayes' newly hired assistant. At that moment, she was standing by Marcus' desk, organizing documents. On the bar counter nearby, there was a cup of freshly brewed coffee. She seemed surprised to see me, but a smile quickly formed on her face, tinged with a hint of flattery. "Grace, you are here. Marcus asked me to wait for him here." She paused. "And to help him with some personal matters." She gestured to the documents in her hand and the coffee. "Marcus said he'd be right back." I didn't speak, simply watching the woman who shouldn't have been there. Her words pricked my heart like a thin thorn. Personal matters. What personal matters of Marcus required her to handle? In a place that was virtually off limits to outsiders, except for me. I remembered Marcus saying this was where he could completely relax. He only showed his most authentic self to me here. But now, Chloe was standing here, organizing his documents and brewing his coffee in a manner almost like a hostess. Although she acted submissive, her gaze and tone subtly hinted at her special status with Marcus. I had once thought my marriage to Marcus was different from a typical arranged marriage. I believed we had genuine feelings for each other. But now, it seemed we were no different from any other arranged couple. I deeply suppressed the turmoil in my heart, and didn't lash out at Chloe. That would make me seem too undignified, and too concerned about her. I simply looked at her coolly and said, "You are not needed here. Please leave." Chloe's smile froze. She probably hadn't expected me to be so direct. A flicker of embarrassment crossed her eyes. But she quickly lowered her head. "Yes, Grace." Then she put down the documents and coffee and hurriedly left the private. I stood in the empty private. Her scent seemed to linger in the air, causing me a wave of physical discomfort. I walked to the window, watching the hustle and bustle of traffic below, but my mind couldn't settle. A few minutes later, Marcus returned. He seemed surprised to find me standing alone by the window. "Luna, you are here. Where's Chloe?" I turned to face him. I asked her to leave. "Marcus, have you forgotten the rules of this private?" My tone was calm. Marcus paused for a moment, then brushed it off casually. "Oh, you mean that? I just asked her to come in briefly to help me find a document." He tried to put his arm around my shoulder. "It was just a work necessity, don't overthink it. She's a newcomer, she might not understand the rules." I pulled away from his hand, and looked him directly in the eyes. "Marcus, this isn't a matter of her understanding the rules. You know what this place means to us. I don't want a third person freely entering it. This is the first time." My voice was low, "and I hope it's the last. I cannot tolerate my private domain being invaded by anyone. No matter who it is, or for what reason." The casual demeanor on Marcus' face vanished. He looked at me, his gaze complex. After a few seconds of silence, he nodded. "All right, I understand. It won't happen again." His tone sounded somewhat sincere, but I wasn't reassured. On the way back to the family, the atmosphere was tense. Marcus tried to make conversation a few times, but I gave him curt replies. During dinner, in front of the elders, we maintained a facade of harmony. But we both knew deep down that something had changed. Back at our own home, Marcus finally couldn't hold back anymore. He held me from behind, resting his chin on the crown of my head. "Luna, are you still upset about what happened this afternoon?" His voice carried a hint of weariness and appeasement. "Chloe is truly just my subordinate, I don't have any other intentions with her." I didn't pull away from his embrace, simply saying softly, "Marcus, what I care about isn't who she is. Nor is it whether you have other intentions with her. I turned to face him. What I care about are boundaries and the exclusivity that should exist between us. Your lounge is our space, just like this home. I don't want others to easily intrude, as that makes me feel our relationship is no longer special. Marcus looked at me intently. I'm sorry, Luna. I was negligent, I didn't consider your feelings. He took my hand. Don't worry, nothing similar will ever happen again. No one, except you, will be allowed to freely enter that private. He solemnly promised me. The calm didn't last long before a new storm brewed. This time, the news came from my assistant, Mia. Mia had been with me for years, fiercely loyal, and she had her own information channels within Hayes. While giving her report, Mia casually brought up something. I heard Marcus recently gave Chloe an invitation to the club. Marcus even allowed her to bring friends to experience it. The club. I knew that place. It was an exclusive venue, where the city's top elites and influential figures gathered. Membership screening was extremely strict. Non-members couldn't even get past the entrance. Marcus was a long-standing member there, and we occasionally went together. Sometimes he would give out rare guest invitations to important business partners, or as a very high reward to a select few core executives within the group. But to Chloe, a new assistant, and allow her to bring friends. Mia continued. Chloe seemed quite pleased. She posted photos on her Instagram feed, set to be visible to a select group. Some colleagues saw it and were all discussing it privately. They were saying Marcus was giving her special treatment, and that she had entered his inner circle. My heart sank and my body grew cold. What exactly was Marcus trying to do? He would so easily hand this privilege, a symbol of status and exclusivity, to a young female subordinate. This was no longer just about breaking boundaries. Had he forgotten his last promise, or had he simply not taken it seriously at all? Chloe's flaunting only added fuel to the fire. Her petty intentions were obvious. She wanted to elevate her standing, and make others believe she had a deep relationship with Marcus. Fine, if they wanted to play this privilege game, then I'd show them what true privilege looked like. I picked up my phone and called my father's secretary, a senior executive at Vance. Uncle, do me a favor. At Pinnacle, book all the guest passes for the next month, and several key private booking slots. Reserve them all under Vance's name, as a perk for the group's executives and their families. You can release a public announcement, make it a bit high profile. Uncle immediately set to work. The family's power and influence were more than enough to achieve this. The club was naturally happy to grant this favor. The news spread quickly. Vance had secured most of the club's recent resources as a reward for its executive team overnight. Vance's grand move became a hot topic of discussion within the circle. Anne's precious invitation instantly became meaningless, even laughable. When all of Vance's executives could freely enter with their families, what did her special treatment amount to? Her planned flaunting and hinting completely failed, turning her into a laughingstock in others' eyes instead. It was said that on the day she planned to bring her friends, she found she couldn't book any decent spot. All the good times and areas had been monopolized by Vance, and she eventually had to leave dejectedly. I wanted to use this method to tell everyone, especially Marcus and Chloe, who truly held the resources and power in this circle, and who was the rightful mistress of the family. This time, I decided to pull the rug out from under them. Without direct confrontation, it was more powerful than any argument. My retaliation was significant, and Chloe was noticeably subdued at the office. The discussions and envy that had once surrounded her turned into subtle mockery and distance. That special aura she had just built up was ruthlessly shattered by me. A few days later, Marcus came home with a grim face. The moment he walked in, he radiated suppressed anger. But I didn't give him a chance to erupt, calmly asking him what he wanted for dinner. He seemed to choke on my composure, unable to voice the accusations he had prepared. He just frustratedly tugged at his tie. Whatever. That night, the atmosphere was very stiff. I knew Chloe must have gone to him to complain. Sure enough, the next day I heard a more detailed version from Mia. It was said that Chloe went to Marcus, crying pitifully, looking vulnerable. She claimed she was just happy to get the invitation, wanting to experience the atmosphere, and had no other intentions at all. She claimed she didn't know why Grace would do such a thing, mobilizing such vast resources against a small assistant like her. Now she couldn't hold her head up at the office, and colleagues were laughing at her behind her back. She felt deeply wronged and sad. In her words, she portrayed herself as an innocent victim while I was depicted as overreacting, and petty me. Couldn't find out Marcus's reaction, but I could guess given his inexplicable protective instinct towards the weak, especially when someone appeared so fragile and helpless, he most likely believed her. And he would think I had gone too far. I scoffed inwardly. This trick of clothes wasn't particularly clever, but it was often effective on someone like Marcus. He was always easily swayed by appearances, especially when his pathetic, protective instinct was triggered. That weekend, Marcus said to me, "Luna, tonight, Chloe will be coming over." I was looking at design blueprints, and I looked up at his words, my gaze devoid of any warmth. "What is she coming for?" "She wants to apologize to you in person." Marcus' tone was a little hesitant. Regarding the club incident last time, she felt she caused a misunderstanding. "I thought it would be better if you two cleared the air so things aren't awkward at the office later." I put down the design blueprints in my hand. "Misunderstood what?" "Misunderstood her flaunting your privilege everywhere, or misunderstood that you wanted to use this method to elevate her status." Marcus's face looked a little awkward. "Luna, it's not what you think." Giving her the invitation was partly to reward her hard work recently, and partly to let her gain some exposure which would be helpful for her work. I truly had no other intentions. I stood up. "Whether you had other intentions, you know best. Since you want her to come, then let her come." "Perfect, I have a few things to say as well." That evening, Chloe did indeed arrive. She wore a simple white dress, with barely any makeup, looking very innocent. Her eyes were still a little red and swollen, as if she had just cried. The moment she saw me, she immediately lowered her head, her voice timid. "Grace, I'm sorry. About the last incident. I was in the wrong. I shouldn't have posted those photos on my Instagram feed. It caused a misunderstanding for everyone. I was truly just too happy. I didn't think much of it. Please forgive me." She looked truly remorseful. If I hadn't known her true character, I would have almost been fooled by her innocent facade. Marcus looked at me, his eyes holding a hint of expectation, hoping I would accept the apology. I didn't look at Chloe, instead, I looked at Marcus. An apology isn't necessary. Whether I accept it or not is irrelevant. I turned to Chloe, my gaze sharp. "Chloe, I hope you understand one thing. At Industries, do your job well and don't covet what you shouldn't have. And certainly don't try to challenge boundaries that shouldn't be challenged." Then, I looked at Marcus again, my tone resolute. "My boundaries, I made them very clear last time. I don't want any more actions that blur boundaries. If there's a next time, you will bear the consequences yourselves." After saying that, I no longer looked at their stiff expressions, and walked directly up the stairs. After that night, the atmosphere between Marcus and me plummeted to an all-time low. Although we still lived under the same roof, communication became sparse. Even when we did speak, it was often about trivial daily matters. Before bed, we erupted into an argument again. He accused me of being too harsh with Chloe. "Even if she made a mistake, you shouldn't have been so aggressive. And that club incident, you made it too high profile. Mobilizing such vast resources was a complete waste." I was taking off my makeup, and at his words, I looked at him in the mirror. "Waste." I turned around, my tone mocking. "Marcus, do you still think the problem lies with me, wasting resources? Rather than you casually handing over a privilege that should belong between us as husband and wife, or at least be at my discretion to a scheming outsider?" Marcus raised his voice. "That's different. I told you, it's a form of incentive for outstanding employees. Pinnacle invitations have been given to others before." I countered. "Outstanding employee? What has Chloe done? Does she deserve it?" "Marcus, do you dare say you don't have any other intentions?" He was speechless, trying to justify himself. I just feel it's not easy for a newcomer. As her superior, it's only right for me to look out for her, a little more." His tone even hardened. I will still take care of her as the situation requires in the future. As the company CEO, I believe I always have that much power. I said calmly, then I also need to reconsider the necessity of this marriage. Marcus stared at me abruptly, his eyes filled with shock. His face instantly fell, his voice changing tone. Luna, all these years of feelings between us. You are casually saying such things over this small matter. I met his furious gaze. You made me feel that I am not irreplaceable in your heart. Since that's the case, I naturally have to seriously consider if I should continue to hold on. He looked at my resolute gaze and seemed to panic slightly, his chest heaving a few times. Finally, he seemed to deflate, his tone stiff. I promise you, I will keep my distance from Chloe in the future. No more unnecessary contact outside of work. Are you satisfied now? Don't talk about divorce anymore, he said, gritting his teeth as if he was making a huge concession. But I knew this was just a temporary compromise. Marcus reluctantly agreed to my demands. He also seemed to deliberately keep some distance from Chloe, at least at the office. But this didn't change Chloe's situation. After the last privilege scandal, Chloe's days at the office were already difficult. Mia was a smart and loyal subordinate, she understood my unspoken wishes. Although I hadn't explicitly instructed her, she always found ways for Chloe to encounter small difficulties at work. Not outright bullying, but enough to make her feel pressured and isolated. Chloe's original plan to climb the ladder through Marcus fell through. Instead, her previous flaunting attracted a lot of jealousy and ostracism. Her work frequently made mistakes, and her mood also grew increasingly low. She looked considerably more haggard, having lost her initial ambitious demeanor. I knew about these circumstances, but I didn't intervene, nor did I stop it. This was the path she chose for herself. The consequences she deserved would eventually catch up to her. The turning point occurred one afternoon. Marcus was on business in a department, and happened to witness Chloe being severely scolded by her direct superior for a work error. That superior was a longtime employee of the company with a hot temper, and he spoke quite impolitely. Chloe stood there, her eyes red-rimmed, tears welling up. This scene happened to be witnessed by Marcus. According to those present later, Marcus' face was extremely grim at the time. But he merely gave that longtime employee a cold glance, then left without saying anything. But I knew this scene touched the softest yet most stubborn corner of Marcus' heart. The shadow of his deceased younger sister. He always felt his sister had been wronged and bullied, which led to the later tragedy. He harbored a nearly pathological protective instinct towards women who appeared fragile or bullied. Especially if, in his eyes, the woman bore some resemblance to his sister in his memory. Chloe's tears and vulnerability precisely hit his trigger point. The scales within him tilted once more. That night, Marcus returned home, carrying a palpable anger. "Grace," he practically roared, "do you have to force someone to their absolute limit, before you be satisfied?" I frowned. "What are you talking about?" He was fuming. "You know what I am talking about. What exactly did she do wrong, that you have to undermine her at the company like this? Did you see how pitiful she looked today? She reminded me of my sister." He blamed me for Chloe's so-called ostracism. Even bringing up his sister, I also became angry. Whatever encountered at the company is a problem with her own competence and way of handling things. When did you see me instructing anyone to bully her? And stop bringing your sister into this. Chloe is your subordinate, not a substitute for your sister. This inexplicable protective instinct of yours is misplaced. He sneered. "My instinct? I think you simply lack compassion. The eldest daughter of the family, accustomed to being superior. You can't stand to see others do well, and you can't tolerate any imperfection. Do you have to trample on everyone who isn't as good as you?" His words were like knives, piercing deeply into my heart. I looked at the man before me, who was speaking so viciously to me because of an outsider. Was this really the husband I genuinely loved? I no longer even had the strength to retort, feeling only absurd and weary. A few days later, I heard Marcus had transferred Chloe to the CEO's office to serve as his special assistant. As for the superior who had severely criticized Chloe, not long after, he was transferred to an insignificant department under some excuse, and was also transferred by Marcus from her position, where she could access more core information. Marcus showed his stance through his actions. He chose to protect Chloe and dealt with those he believed had bullied her. He was defying me. The Cold War between us fully escalated, and Marcus moved into the guest room. Later, he eventually spent most of his time living in an apartment near the company. I didn't try to stop him, nor did I question him. Not having to face his face distorting with baseless accusations, I actually felt a sense of relief. But he didn't stop testing my limits. He began letting Chloe handle more of his private affairs. He had her liaise with the family driver and housekeeper, arranging his personal schedule. He even had her pick up and drop off his personal belongings at our house. One time, Chloe directly entered the keypad entry code and came in. She said Marcus had sent her to retrieve a document he'd forgotten at home and a few change of clothes. Although she still stood at the doorway, her posture remained humble. But her eyes held an almost imperceptible smugness and pride. I had the housekeeper give her the things, and I didn't say a single word to her the entire time. Closing the door, I felt a deep sense of powerlessness. Marcus, do you have to constantly hurt me like this? After that, I rejected all his attempts to communicate. I ignored his calls, and disregarded his messages since he chose to protect that outsider and hurt me. Then so be it. Marcus' estrangement, and Chloe's rise to prominence, naturally couldn't escape the notice of outsiders. Chloe began subtly showcasing her closeness with Marcus in work. Sometimes it was a photo of the office during overtime posted on social media with the caption, "Working hard with the boss, fulfilling." Other times, she would let slip in her conversations and demeanor within the company that she had participated in one of Marcus's important decisions, or occasionally she'd casually mention some of Marcus's personal preferences. She no longer directly flaunted like last time, but instead used a more subtle way to invite speculation. I ignored all of it. I no longer paid attention to what new tricks Chloe pulled, nor did I dwell on Marcus' attitude. When disappointment accumulated to its peak, only calmness remained. I began reviewing business related to Hayes, looking for competitive entry points. I needed to prepare for my future. Marcus thought sacrificing me could buy him the peace or protection he wanted. Chloe thought she had won. Very well, I would make them pay the price eventually. It was time for another Hayes family dinner. Eleanor specifically called me, her tone gentle, insisting I attend. I knew she wanted to ease the tension between Marcus and me, so I agreed. As per usual, I went directly to Hayes headquarters, ready to leave for the family with him. I arrived on the top floor, and the secretary told me Marcus was in the private inside. I walked toward that familiar door. This time, the door was closed. I knocked, and Marcus' voice came from inside, "Come in." Pushing the door open, I once again saw the person I didn't want to see. Marcus was sitting on the sofa, looking at documents. And was sitting right beside him, reporting to him. That seat was originally mine. Hearing the door open, they both looked up simultaneously. Seeing it was me, Marcus' expression was cool. "Have a seat for a moment. I still have some things to do." I didn't sit down, I just remained standing, watching them. Marcus frowned and told Chloe to get up. Chloe was startled. "Marcus, there's still a bit of work left to report." Marcus said coolly, "Let's get a private room at the campus house, and continue the report." Then he said to me, "You can rest here. Just wait for me at the campus entrance in 20 minutes. He left me in this, his most private. And then he took Chloe to a private room at the coffee shop for them to be alone. But what could I say? Hadn't Marcus just left this CEO's private for me? I had to admit, Marcus knew how to humiliate me. I watched their retreating figures as they left together. Marcus didn't even look back at me. As passed by me, a faint, almost imperceptible smile seemed to curve on her lips. I sighed at my treatment, even chuckling. I calmly accepted all of it. On the way to the family, Marcus and I had almost zero communication. He must have known what his actions just now meant to me, but he didn't care. He even casually brought up the importance of tomorrow's meeting, as if taking Chloe to the coffee shop to hear her report was a perfectly normal work procedure. I just silently looked out the window, having already made up my mind. The atmosphere at the family dinner maintained a facade of harmony as always. Eleanor tried to create conversation between Marcus and me to ease the tension between us. William, meanwhile, discussed company matters with Marcus. I quietly ate my meal, occasionally responding to Eleanor's words. After dinner, everyone sat in the living room, drinking tea and chatting. Marcus' phone suddenly rang insistently. He answered the call, spoke a few words, and his face instantly contorted. What? How could this happen? Have you found out who did this? His voice grew louder, filled with unbelievable shock and fury. After hanging up, he immediately received several messages. He quickly looked at them, his fingers turning white from gripping his phone. Eleanor asked worriedly, Marcus, what's wrong? Marcus looked up, staring fixedly at me. His eyes were filled with shock, anger, and a hint of incomprehension. Our group's key development project in Southridge, his voice hoarse, the most crucial plot of land, was sniped. And what's more, one of our important partners suddenly announced their withdrawal, and instead partnered with our main competitor. He paused, then struggled to utter the last few words. It said. Vance was behind it. Everyone's gaze instantly focused on me. Eleanor looked at me with a shocked expression, and William's brow also furrowed. Marcus looked at me with a complex gaze. Luna, tell me this isn't true. This is just a misunderstanding, isn't it? I met his gaze calmly, even with a hint of a smile. It's true. I did it. Why? Marcus' voice was hoarse. Luna, why would you do this? That's a project Hayes valued greatly. Do you know what this means for the group? We are husband and wife. How could you? Husband and wife. I cut him off, my tone icy. When you condoned that woman slowly eroding our trust and boundaries. When you allowed her to freely invade my private space, even my home. When you spoke so viciously to me, and even publicly undermined those close to me, all to protect her. Did you ever think that we were husband and wife? I looked directly at Marcus. You let her invade my life, and trample my boundaries, so I am letting you taste what it's like to be stabbed in the back by someone closest to you. Love is gone, so I must secure my own interests, mustn't I? Marcus passionately retorted, I didn't betray you, Chloe, and I truly only have a work relationship. How could you do something like this because of these misunderstandings? This is business, this isn't a game. Misunderstandings? I scoffed. Is the harm you caused me false? Once trust is destroyed, it cannot be recovered. I stood up, looking at him, and said word by word, Marcus, we're getting a divorce. After saying that, I straightened my back, and walked out of the family. At that moment, I felt a clarity and lightness I'd never felt before. Marcus chased after me. He grabbed my arm, preventing me from getting into the car. Luna, let's go home and talk. You can't just leave like this. His voice held pleading, even panic. I shook off his hand. Which home? The one you've already allowed outsiders to freely enter and exit, or the one where you blamed me to protect others? But he insisted on pulling me into his car. We sped all the way back to our former home. Pushing the door open, the living room was a little empty. Some of my personal belongings had already been packed and taken away in advance. Marcus looked at the empty living room, and seemed even more agitated. He spun around abruptly, grabbing my shoulders. Luna, don't do this to me. His eyes filled with despair. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have indulged Chloe and let you be wronged. I shouldn't have hurt you with those words. I just felt she was like my sister. I apologize. I truly apologize. Please don't leave me, don't talk about divorce, all right? His eyes were red-rimmed. The man who was always so proud seemed so vulnerable at that moment. If it were before, I might have softened. But now, I simply looked at him calmly. Marcus, it's too late. Your indulgence of Chloe completely destroyed my feelings for you, and the last shred of hope I had for this marriage. As for Chloe being like your sister, I shook my head, finding it utterly absurd. I am not a replacement for your sister, nor is Chloe. You cannot project your guilt over your sister onto others and use that as an excuse to hurt the person closest to you. What happened in business, I continued, was just my way of protecting myself and ending this misguided relationship. You pushed me to this point step by step, You personally destroyed everything we had. There's truly no turning back for us. I gently pushed him away. Let us let each other go, Marcus. Marcus didn't agree to the divorce. He began trying every possible way to win me back. He transferred Chloe out of the CEO's office. He even quickly found an excuse and terminated her employment entirely. His actions were swift and decisive, as if to immediately sever all ties. He came home frequently, even when my attitude was cold. He insisted on staying. He would try to cook my favorite dishes, and buy my favorite flowers. He would wait for me when I worked late, just like before. One time, he even drank himself into a stupor, calling my name repeatedly outside my door, begging for my forgiveness. But the damage was done, and trust had crumbled. No amount of persuasion could bring it back. While I was insisting on the divorce, Chloe actually found me. She looked much more haggard, her eyes filled with unwillingness and resentment, and her former innocence and purity were gone. Her tone was sharp. Grace, you must be very pleased, aren't you? You ruined everything for me. Just because I bothered you. Do you think you've won? Marcus doesn't have you in his heart at all. He just... I cut her off coldly. Chloe, this path was your own choice. You tried to take shortcuts, coveting what doesn't belong to you, and now you must bear the corresponding consequences. As for Marcus and me, it's not your place to comment. I paused, looking at her pale and twisted face. Instead of resenting others, you do well to reflect on yourself, and why you ended up here today. After saying that, I walked directly past her. Her frustrated cries came from behind me. No matter how Marcus tried to win me back, I insisted on the divorce. At the same time, certain moves I made in business brought some sustained pressure on Hayes. After a stalemate of several months, Marcus finally realized that this marriage was truly beyond saving. The light in his eyes gradually faded, and he himself looked much more haggard. Finally, he agreed to the divorce. On the day we signed the papers, Marcus and I faced each other in silence. The moment I put my name down on the documents, I felt a wave of relief. This marriage, which had drained me emotionally, and been filled with disappointment and hurt, finally came to an end. Walking out of the Countess' office, Marcus stood behind me, calling my name. Luna. His voice was choked. I didn't turn around, simply saying softly, "Goodbye, Marcus." Then, I walked towards my car. From this moment on, our lives would head in different directions. After the divorce, news about Chloe gradually began to surface. To completely distance himself, Marcus gave Chloe no further assistance after she was dismissed. Due to Chloe's notorious misconduct of being involved in a superior's marriage, and causing a huge scandal, her reputation in the industry was utterly ruined. Hardly any reputable company was willing to hire her. I heard she later switched jobs a few times, but none lasted long. Ultimately, she left the city. The ambitious girl who had once yearned for a meteoric rise ultimately paid a heavy price for her greed and scheming. Marcus' life also underwent significant changes. For him, losing me wasn't just losing a wife, it also meant irreparable cracks appearing in the long-standing business alliance with the family. While it wouldn't cause Hayes to immediately collapse, it did face numerous setbacks in its subsequent development. He himself became more withdrawn and aloof. He poured almost all his time into work. He later tried to contact me a few times, through friends, but I chose to avoid or reject him every time. Some damage, once inflicted, is irreparable. But after completely freeing myself from that suffocating past, I embraced my new beginning. Using the assets I received from the settlement and the resources from the family, I independently managed several successful investment projects, and carved out a whole new world for myself. My life became carefree and on my own terms, and I never lacked admirers or suitors. But I preferred my current state of independence and self-reliance. I began to travel the world, visiting all the places I had always dreamed of. I made new friends and broadened my horizons. I had become the person I truly wanted to be,